Okay, and well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm actually being the engineer of the event. Also, is that all right, Miles? I'm now both the
very impressive.
My second career. There you go. We got a lot of nice folks on the call now. We're also live streaming on Facebook. So I think it's directing people to go to both places. So fantastic. Thank you to our friends over at Facebook, our friends over at Zoom who really rode through this pandemic very, very nicely, became a word. And want to thank everyone for joining us. This is our third installment, I guess, of presenting live the Recruiter Index that we presented on CNBC last week. And we're joined today, not just by co-founder of Recruitercom, Miles Jennings. Oh, there you go. Nice. But by Jennifer Goodfriend. Jennifer recently joined Recruiter.com as our head of platforms. And towards the end of the session, we'll have Jennifer talk about our new video platform. I think you'll see I started talking about how do we hire faster, I think 2 months ago on CNBC. And so this is really going to tie a lot of what we've been talking about and thinking about together. So excellent. Jen, that picture actually is before the baby. So all happy, relaxed, no lines, really good. That's excellent. Really nice. Excellent. So Miles, why don't you take it away and for our audience, and we're going to start with a good review of what we presented last Thursday on CNBC.
Yes, so we'll get right to some really good data. I'll tell you a little bit about Recruiter.com and what the Recruiter Index is for those of you who haven't joined us on these nice calls before. And by the way, welcome to everybody who is joining for the first time. We have a lot of participants, and then also Facebook is bringing a whole new audience to us. So welcome. Recruiter.com, we are a hiring platform with the world's largest network of recruiters. So we have over 27,000 recruiters in our network. Basically, we fill jobs for employers across the country using this network of recruiters. So a while back, actually, kind of in the depths of the Corona pandemic in April, we started surveying these recruiters because we realized there was a lot of uncertainty around where the job market was going, and who better to tell us that than these recruiters. Our kind of special sort of competence is being able to reach recruiters and talk to them and gather their input. So this is our survey of these professional recruiters about their feelings of the job market and hiring trends, and we're really gleaning insights about where things are going. This goes out, by the way, to both agency recruiters and corporate talent acquisition. We've been tracking this monthly. As Evan said, we have been presenting this discussion. It's been really fun over the past 3 months, but we've been doing this for about 8 months. I think this is our 8th Recruiter Index. So we track this monthly. We're looking for where the job market is heading. And of course, the people, most of the people on this call understand this. Why recruiters? It's because no one knows the job market better than recruiters. Just their daily workload and what they're doing really indicates, is a strong indicator of how the general job market is doing. Onto the key data, we're looking at sentiment first. So this is, the Recruiter Index is more than anything how recruiters are feeling about their work and about the overall job market. Now, this month, we're talking about November here, was 3.3. That was exactly flat from October. There really was a change though, and the interesting thing is that the near-term sentiment, so how people are feeling about the current month, was actually down by about by a good percentage, about 10% down. So it was pretty significantly negative. However, their optimism over the next 90 days was actually very positive. So what that means, what we can kind of glean from that, is that while people really were forecasting a kind of tough winter or a dark winter, as some political folks have been saying, they do have very strong optimism for a good recovery after the new year. So we ended up flat overall, near term bad, long term very good. The number of jobs that people are working on. So for recruiters, this is the jobs on their desks, they call it. These are the jobs that they are trying to find candidates for. This was actually a lot higher. It's the highest number that we've seen so far. So that's really positive. Over month, it was 19 jobs in November, and then 15 jobs in October, but it's also the highest number of jobs from since when we started doing the index. So what that means is recruiters are very busy, and that can mean really good things for the job market, and also kind of points to a changing type of position. We've been seeing a lot of jobs in, say, logistics that require very high volumes of people. This kind of points to that trend as well. The index also looks at how recruiters are feeling now versus last year. We asked them how their workloads are for that month compared to how they were the same month last year. This is actually a negative sentiment for November. What this means is that last month it was only 11% down. Now it's 14. So it's just a little bit of a divergence on the negative side. For job market trends, this is basically less hot. So we have 31% saying that it's stable, 32% say hotter, and this is down from 39%. So again, a little bit of like short-term pessimism, long-term optimism. We also look at the types of jobs and the types of companies that recruiters are hiring for. And for this, it was the same in healthcare and software, but IT replaced manufacturing. So in October, we predicted a nice spike in manufacturing, and that ended up being really correlated to the actualized results in the job market. And there was a tick up in manufacturing. We're not seeing that anymore. IT took over that spot, and along IT and software, really very similar industries, the general technology industry, that's going to be the hottest, along with healthcare, which stayed the same. And then we also track how candidates are feeling about job opportunities and whether they're willing to make a move. This stayed relatively stable from October. Generally speaking, candidates are open to new opportunities. Here's a little bit of a look back historically. Most importantly, how you feel about the job market right now. You can see the very depth of the the lowest point is in April. This was really during the height of the pandemic. Everybody, including recruiters, are feeling terrible. It's generally been going strongly up throughout the year since we've been tracking it, but you do see that trend down in November. So it is, it's reversing that trend, getting a little bit negative, but again, long-term, still pretty good. This is the number of workloads, just so you can see the trends. That's a really nice spike in November. The average number of job requirements are going up. One thing that we are seeing just anecdotally, we saw a lot of talent acquisition folks and recruiters actually get laid off, during the past 6 months. And so what this can also point to is the fact that recruiters are doing more with less. So they have a corporation will tend to have less recruiters now than they did, say, 6 months ago. And so they're getting more work out of them. They're busier. And our Recruiters on Demand business, which is essentially a flexible service to hire recruiters, is doing very well, and we're seeing a lot of demand there. And that is also inversely correlated to the number of recruiting jobs. So what we're seeing is the recruiters that are still working are very busy, and it might indicate good times for, say, like RPO companies and on-demand recruiting. And then just on the candidate side, we asked them about how open candidates are to new job opportunities. Really quite open. That's basically flat from last month. When this is a high number, when you see most candidates are open, that means it's a good time to contact basically passive candidates that already have positions and are looking to switch. It's a healthy indication for the job market because it means that people are relatively stable and they feel confident in switching jobs. And so those numbers are actually very good and positive. We also track what candidates are most interested in. And interestingly, last month, the benefit of remote work, so doing what we're doing here, you'll see us all from our zooming in from our homes, remote work was actually higher than even compensation. So candidates were saying, I care about remote work more than anything else. That trend reversed a little bit in November, and now compensation is back to being the most requested benefit. So whether that's people, just thinking about, hoarding a little cash, or really thinking about cash before this winter, that might be a little bit of a fact. But this is going to be really interesting data to track over time, and it helps recruiters to understand this graph. You understand what you should emphasize about your company. For example, if you are a talent acquisition person and you want to emphasize which benefits, remote work is still very, very important. And then new experiences also is higher than something like vacation and PTO. So emphasizing these in your employer branding are going to be important. Okay, that's the report.
Hey, it's fantastic, Miles. So, part of what we were able to do is we took this data, and the conversation that we had with Kelly Evans on CNBC was really taking, this basic information and drawing some conclusions out of it. So the first that we saw when you started to dig a little bit further down was that we really saw a spike in high volume jobs, right? So the high volume warehousing, logistics. Not that it was anything like, oh my God, 90% optimism, but there were more recruiters reporting on those areas, which really aligned with the workloads increasing from 15 open jobs to 19 open jobs, which also correlated to the shift from remote work to compensation, just that slight shift. Meaning if I'm working on more jobs where I got to be a driver, got to be in a warehouse, got to be in a factory, that those would not be remote, those would actually be in person. Found that to be very interesting. Turns out we were absolutely correct. The jobs report that came out showed a decline, sort of what we actually were showing in that slide, where the sentiment for actually November was really, really down, across the board. Optimism for the future. We called out the fact that there was no retail spike this season that would really cause those seasonal retail jobs to really jump. And then we actually called out the spike in jobs from these, warehouse workers, the high volume jobs. Turns out those were about, of the 245,000 jobs that were added, 145,000 actually came from that area that we had called the warehouse logistic manufacturing. I told Miles Friday at around 9 o'clock, we should pick lottery numbers as well as we're actually picking out this stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually poll. So before, we got about 50 something people here now, and we're going to launch a quick poll just to find out what you're actually thinking, whether you're seeing the job market improving significantly within the next 90 days, not within the next 90 days, not until later this year, not until this summer. So again, feel free to weigh in. I find this to be pretty interesting. And when we're done with the overall webinar, there'll be a discussion regarding. You'll get a survey, and you'll be able to talk about whether other questions that you would want to have added until to the next recruiter index. So things like remote work or things that we added. Clearly, we're probably going to talk about some video stuff and how that actually impacts everybody across the board there. And anyone else that wants to join the conversation, feel free to raise your hand. I think there's a hand somewhere. You can actually physically raise your hand, and I will get you added. But I want to welcome to, hey, Dan, nice to see you, man. How are you, Dan? Dan, you're on mute. We call you on mute. The Zoom faux pas.
Exactly. I'm good, man. Busy.
Nice to see you. Nice little background you got there. In my world, that's called a bullseye. So you're smacking my. Oh, there you go. Okay.
It's a spiral. I get that a lot. It's a Celtic spiral, but yeah. Well, when you're a recruiter, being in the middle of the bullseye is not such a bad thing.
That's right. So hey, Dan, so we're seeing now the results that we're seeing. Dan, why don't you just give a quick 15-second about Dan Sullivan?
I've been an executive recruiter since 1987. I've owned my own shop. In June, it'll be 30 years, which still boggles the mind. We work primarily, it's with a firm called J. Patrick & Associates. We work primarily with technology vendors and their channel partners. So that means companies in the software business, cybersecurity, telecoms firms, and do a lot of work in the audiovisual and video conferencing integration world. Both contract and full-time, from 1 month I placed the CEO and a help desk guy in the same company.
Wow, that's fantastic. I've known Dan forever. I think forever. Way
Hold on, let me look. I probably can tell you.
way before Gray, way before all that other stuff. So hey, Dan, you're seeing now the poll, about 50%, slightly under 50% expect their job market to improve significantly within the next 90 days. About 18% not within the next 90 days. 27%, so almost a little over a quarter, think it's not going to happen until the summer. And then the real good pessimists are thinking not until later this year. So we're sorry, I shouldn't have said that. So there's 7% saying not until the end of this year. Let's not question the statement. Where are you sitting on that, Dan?
Well, it's funny when people ask me, what are you seeing? I say, well, it's uneven, right? So there are, huge craters in some businesses that we're in or that are adjacent to what we do. So for instance, we don't place people in the audiovisual business who do your events, your meetings, your hotel work. That business has been completely vaporized, as many of you know, from other parts of that sector. In the integration world, we work with a lot of companies that do commercial integration. So they'll build your, like your in real life experiences, conference rooms, video conference rooms, huddle rooms, classrooms. And some of that work also went completely comatose because the buildings, you couldn't get into them to actually do the work, nor were people gathering their employees. Now that you're seeing firms figure out some mix of work from home and work in office, some of those projects are coming off the shelf. In addition, many of those companies that do the audiovisual integration have a managed services piece where they'll manage your work from home people. Their business went through the roof when it came to enabling the 100% of your workforce that now, instead of the 8 or 10 or 15% that was working virtually. So maybe they had 10,000 employees, and only 150 or 1,500 of them work from home. Now 99, 100% of them work from home. All of a sudden you had to support all those people, you had to train all those people, you had to deal with the help calls, you had to do integration work. So it's this mixed, in a single company you'd have a mixed environment where the building things business, very transactional, very seasonal, very sort of lumpy, disappeared, at least for 6 or 8 months. But at the same time, they had to ramp up things like doubling the size of their help desk because you add more customers, you add more help problems. So that's just one sort of microcosm example of what it looks like. Again, winners and losers in the same firm. So they might be letting go of technicians and engineers to build things, but adding people on the support side, or even adding people to train end users on all the different platforms like Zoom, Office 365, Google, or Microsoft Teams, things like that.
So let me ask you a question then. Let's look at J. Patrick. Let's look at you rather than J. Patrick, so you don't have to get in trouble. End of the year, are you guys up, down, consistent with where you want it to be despite COVID?
I would say we're down year to year. For certain. What's interesting to me is that you would think under these conditions, the candidates actually would behave better. Usually that's the case when you have a downturn. All the people who you have a hard time getting phone calls back start to behave. I've had some amazing stories this year of crazy behavior by candidates. That's usually an up market type of thing. In this market, I had one guy literally take a vacation to Mexico and he got quarantined because his girlfriend had COVID.
Well, now you're also in the IT sector, so that's really we've seen IT and software sort of remain in the top 3, either top 3 or top 4 industries throughout this entire COVID period. I think the only one beaten by is healthcare. One time we saw manufacturing beat them, but I think the IT sector has really been able to sustain itself pretty nicely. So are you seeing that? Are you seeing like the industries that dipped down, were they the non-IT or even inside the IT sector that were more physical folks?
I think you're right. I think part of it is sort of the acceleration of sort of larger secular trends like cloud transformation, where people were maybe working on things piecemeal or in a multi-year. They threw gas on it. They went to turbo in some cases, where they said, all right, we're going to have this opportunity because we don't have all these other projects. We're going to triple down on these other things. Not every company did that, but there are areas where you saw firms really make a bigger commitment rather than a smaller commitment. There are absolutely situations where companies backed off, did the usual recession thing where like everything's on hold, no to everybody, no hiring, no new budgets. But there are other firms who are a little more downturn resistant, let's say, who decided, hey, this is the moment this is a pivot point where we're going to absolutely go all the way in on a particular type of initiative. So you saw a fair amount of that. And that's the kind of feedback I got from the technology vendors I work with in these various sectors, but also with the managed services. It's this, again, it's this uneven mixed picture where it's not necessarily winners and losers, but it's situational. You might have two companies that look pretty much the same markets, same budget size, and they went two different ways, mainly because of the way leadership looks at the situation, right? Crisis or opportunity.
Hey, Dan, I'm getting a bunch of questions of people that either want to talk to you or like your bullseye. Just give out your email address for everyone.
Sure. It's dan@jpatrick.com, and jpatrick is JPATRICK.com.
Hey, Dan, thanks for joining us. Hey, Miles, I got a few questions that came up about skill sets. So I'll read it to you because it actually came up in a few different ways. So do you think that renewable sector sort of, this emergence of getting a net zero, I think people are trying to figure out, is there a new industry, for a new educational industry in the oil and gas space? You and I have talked about how much the oil and gas space got hurt throughout this whole process. Do you think there's going to be a renewed growth in that sector for this sort of net zero stuff?
I do. Just anecdotally, again, we have a number of clients, as you know, Evan, in the oil and gas industry. And, earlier this year, you had this confluence of the pandemic and then the oil shock in terms of prices. And so you had this dramatic transformation in the energy industry. It turns out our clients did kind of weather the storm. At our company, saw some, reduced bill rates and slight, headcount reductions, things like that. But they really weathered the storm just in general. And there hasn't been, really like mass layoffs and things like that. I heard just recently, I was listening to NPR, and, they were talking about, they had an energy exec on, and they were talking about how they're looking to transform their company. So you have a lot of these really large energy providers really looking to change the nature of their company from basically petrochemical extraction into more renewables. And then you have the political environment changing as well. It's probably what these executives are, how they're shaping their company to kind of fit the political narrative. But I think there is a very good opportunity. I can't say we've seen it yet. We've seen a lot of sales roles pick up at renewable companies. Solar energy, that sort of thing. We're not seeing, a big uptick yet, but I can see it happening as we go into the spring.
All right. So the interesting article in the, I think it was the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, really downplaying college as an experience for getting your skills training, and to really focus, that it's a real mistake of the U.S. economy is promoting college. We should be promoting skills-based learning. And if you can get in college, great. Because what promoting college has really just forced so many people into serious debt. So talk about that just a second. Dan, do you recruit anyone that doesn't have a college diploma?
All the time.
Really? Okay, go ahead. What sort of roles?
So those roles tend to be, I would say, blue collar with a laptop, right? So these are people who are working for AV integrators or for telecoms companies, and they generally are literally hands-on. So they're doing everything from loading software to getting out the hand tools to mount, displays and things like that. I would say fewer than half of those people who might have titles like field engineer, installer, AV commissioning engineer, things along those lines. Most of them come from backgrounds where maybe they have a little trade school or a 2-year degree. Many of them are former military people who have tons of really good training, as you said,
Right.
skills. I think that article in the WSJ forgets that a big part of, especially at the high end, top schools, let's say the top 40 or 50 private schools, are not really about education so much as gaining entrance to a certain caste of people, CAST, in the US, besides skills. So it's not just who you are, but it's who you know and who you spend your time with.
Miles, comments?
Well, we could have a whole discussion about this, and I could probably talk for a long time. I'm sort of passionate about this subject. But, one thing, in the short term, where this has really exposed a lot of, kind of disparities in education and access and things like that. But then really long term, when you think about the attitudes that are being shaped right now with young people, and you have, my nephew going to Brown, except Brown isn't open anymore. So he's just, zooming in. And what is he going to think about, his college degree? It's going to be an entirely different, group of associations, and people are really questioning it because they're doing what we're doing right now, just a Zoom call. And college has to be more than just a Zoom call. So I think this trend is really here to stay. It's probably going to be dramatically transformed. There's going to be a lot of economic impacts to the changing nature of college, and any company that really has very kind of like harsh requirements in terms of college degrees, they probably should look at it honestly and reevaluate it, because it's something that's definitely here to stay, and it's going to be questioned by more and more people, especially as people who come of age or came of age during this pandemic.
Look, I completely agree. I think there are a few trends that are going to come out of COVID. One of them is going to be a focus on skills as opposed to focus on education. I'm hoping that we stop seeing that job description that says, must have, college degree, must be economics major, must be all these other things, as opposed to having really good experiences, having a knowledge of certainly associated here. All right, there's another question that came up. So it's what impact do we think COVID surge will have on the workforce generally? Little ground gain in the past 5-6 months. Thanks, Josephine. Look, I used to say this for the first 3 times I was on CNBC, that despite the increase and despite the optimism, our heart still goes out to the millions of people that are actually not employed or unemployed or want to get employment. Look, I think the challenge that we have as an industry is that there really is this digital divide, and even Dan said, hey, I'll hire anyone, the tech job goes to anyone with a laptop, right? Well, that's great. So we're still finding the jobs of people that are, technically savvy people. There is in education, a term called the digital divide, right? The kids who are on Zoom, that's fantastic. Well, the kids that don't have Zoom, they're getting hard books. They're getting the same notebooks, Miles, that you and I grew up with, the same workbooks. Take these home and go study. Well, guess what? Their parents aren't online. Their parents don't have Zoom. They don't have LinkedIn. They don't have access to, big Wi-Fi connections. They don't have these things. And I think Josephine, who asked the question, I think the biggest problem is going to be that getting that audience of people back to work. And look, those are the people that were, and again, I'm generalizing to prove a point, that audience were retail jobs, hospitality jobs, travel jobs, the jobs that are really in person. These are not, you're not going to have, a hospitality person who worked at a bar all of a sudden online. That's not happening. Just how many mixology courses could one give in order to make up the difference there? If you were working in a hotel, your maintenance, whatever that is, and I remember our local school, they decided not to open. The teachers made this big stink last minute, we don't want to open. And I was like, okay, the teachers have a right to do it. I'm like, yeah, but think about the hundreds of people that work in those buildings that aren't getting paid, right? The maintenance workers, the landscapers, et cetera. So I think the real problem, the real challenge that we're going to have is how do we get this audience back to work? It's something that I'm now thinking about, all the time. What role do we have as recruiters to help this audience, right? We are the conduit. If we were real estate agents, we're the conduit for people to get homes. Well, if we're recruiters, we're the conduit to these organizations to hire people. And how do we help the people who aren't part of the digital economy? I actually think video, Josephine is going to play a real serious role in that. And you know what, it's right at the bottom of the hour. Promised, a bunch of people were asking questions about video because we started talking about it. So Jen, why don't you talk about video, what we're doing at video, and then I'll regroup at the end and sort of bring it all together to answer that last question. So thanks, Josephine.
Sure. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So Recruiter.com video is now live, which is really, really exciting. And we built this software specifically for hiring managers and recruiters. And I just want to show you a little flyer here. Well, I'll just make it larger. And essentially, you know, all our clients at Recruiter.com internally, we're using the software with them. And then we also have a lot of customers externally that have been piloting the software. And what we're hearing net is that in 2 minutes or less, our recruiters and hiring managers are able to just make an assessment of a candidate beyond what they were able to do with a phone screen. So they're grasping things like soft skills, right? A personality fit, a culture fit for an organization. And they're actually making hiring decisions much, much faster than they were able to prior to using Recruiter.com video. So we created this little brochure with all of the feedback we received from our customers. And the first thing we're hearing across the board is that it's a time saver, right? So some clients are actually hiring directly from just watching the video of a candidate. Other clients are able to like screen down and say, you know, of these pool of 50 candidates, you know, 20 of them are worth us going ahead and doing a phone interview for. The other thing we're hearing is facilitating team consensus, which can be really challenging. So we've all had that hiring manager, you know, that we have sourced incredible candidates for. We send them over, right, by email or in whatever system is required. And then it takes a week, maybe 30 days, you know, for the whole team to kind of sign off on that candidate. And that's a function of just people being really busy and also having to get on people's calendars. So having our software has enabled teams to just quickly decide, you know what, this candidate's a go, because with every video, you have the opportunity to put in comments and to, you know, star the candidate accordingly. And it's just been really simple in that regard. We've been talking about the remote work world that we live in, you know, it's here to stay. So finding the best fit candidates cross geography is an incredible thing to do for any hiring manager or for any customer. And Recruiter.com video is really at the forefront of that. And everyone loves the fact that it's a no headache software, no installations, no downloads. Literally all you need is a Wi-Fi connection, be it mobile or computer, as well as an email address, and you're up and running. I think what I'd like to do now is just, if I have enough time, to just really quickly show you what the platform looks like. And Evan, just cut me off when I need to stop here. But essentially, you log in, I'm at video.recruiter.com here. And what you're gonna see is just a really simple screen, right? So here we are. These are all jobs that I've created on the left-hand side. The first thing that you would probably wanna do is create a new job. So I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna describe what that job is. Let's call it Recruiter.com index test. I'm going to let the whole team see this job, right? Or you could decide that only select members of your team will be privy to the job. And in advanced settings here, we'll decide whether a resume is required or not. And of course, the job description, right? So what you want the candidate to see when they're prompted to apply. And I'll hit continue. Now we get to determine our questions. So this is something, you know, as few or as many questions as you require. We are finding that no more than 5 is really optimal. In fact, most of our clients are really using 2 questions or maybe 3 questions. Often a question around introducing yourself makes a lot of sense, and then something more specific to the role itself. So here are the questions. You get to decide how long the candidate has. You get to decide if they have the opportunity for a retake. That's only really a fair thing to do. And then you can add more questions as you need to, and you can enable a moment to practice or not. Now, this is really, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on this as well. The ability to brand the software. So your logo, your company background, maybe there's a video that you have on YouTube or on Vimeo that you want the candidates to be privy to. You can include all that information here. And then lastly, you know, it's just sending this out to the candidate. So I'll use, you know, my maiden name and Gmail here. Again, all you literally need is the candidate's name and email address. You don't have to include their phone number, but I've included mine here, the message that they'll get, as well as a deadline for when you want them to fill out, when you want them to do their video. Maybe we'll give them until Friday, and we'll hit continue. Now, here you are, you have a link for this job posting, right? So you can now put this on LinkedIn. You can send this to a candidate pool that you've curated on Facebook. You can send this in an email rather generically. This could be, you know, mass emailed out. Really, really simple. And what will happen is as candidates apply, their videos are going to populate here in the new candidates bucket. What I'm going to do is just go back to some of my jobs that I have videos for, so you can start to see what that looks like. All of these buckets are customizable. So if you don't want this to say shortlisted, or if you would like this third bucket to say hired, so be it, right? Everything is customizable here. We can rename them accordingly. And what's been really great for Team Consensus, right, is, okay, here's a video that I did, right? We're going to show the details of that video. You can download a link to my video. You can share it with a hiring manager. So instead of having that hiring manager log in, you can just send them a link to this email. I'll go ahead and copy the link. They can put it into any browser and they can watch the candidate's video, you know, very quickly. You know, 5-star the candidate, leave comments for the team. A part that's been really, really awesome is the drag and drop functionality. So moving right from a new candidate to a shortlisted candidate, or whatever you may call this bucket. Always an opportunity to invite more candidates. Easy peasy to just, you know, pull the link to the job again and to mass share it. And I feel like that's the nuts and bolts of what's important here, but, you know, happy to field questions as people see fit.
Hey, Jen, really, thanks so much for giving everyone an insight. We're going to do a full-on webinar, all on video, how it's used, best practices, etc., probably within the next 2 weeks. So be on the lookout, stay tuned. If anyone is interested in checking out the video, go to SimpleVideo.recruiter.com. Nice and simple. You can't get easier than that. And I think the conversation that we're really having and that we're going to continue to have is, how do we use video, and can we use video to help people that obviously they all have smartphones. Everyone on the planet has at least one. You know, how do we use video to help everybody get a job? How do we do that? So that's part of the conversation. We're going to continue to have that conversation. If you feel that you could be part of that conversation to help out, whether it's on the candidate side, candidates that don't actually have Zoom and resumes and LinkedIn profiles, et cetera, or the employer side who'd be willing to sort of work in that area, we're going to be having that conversation over the next couple of weeks. Certainly, as we, you know, feel our responsibility to be part of that rehiring of our country and getting our economy back working. I always say, whenever you do a webinar, after about 35 minutes, you start to lose a person like every 30 seconds, and it's like dead on. It's like really, really funny to watch. So really, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Jen, great job on the video. I think it's really exciting. Everyone's going to need to be doing video screening. This is the most economical platform that's out there, month to month, no setup cost, really easy to use. So we're using it ourselves and having great success in placing our on-demand recruiters at projects using this video platform. So we're really seeing our own success come out of it. I think we're seeing from source to hire at a 5 times faster rate than we would ordinarily. No scheduling, none of that whole, when do you have time available, just checking on the video. So just really great stuff there. Be on the lookout now for the next our webinar on the video. Announce a whole thing on video, how you can get involved in it, using it, reselling it, being an affiliate for it. We'll stay tuned for that within the next couple of weeks. And if we don't hear from you before the end of the month, I want everyone to have a very happy and healthy season. I hope your success is optimistically forthcoming and not waiting until later in the summer. Only 7% felt that. So really, thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and everybody have a fantastic day.
Thank you, everyone.